I want all of you to have a good time this weekend. I really do. And I want all of you to be winners, but you can't be. You're a winner for watching the show, but some of you are just flat out going to be losers because of the team you're pulling for. And some of you know it and you're ready for it. Others are not ready for it. That's where I want to dive in tonight because upsets are coming. As sure as the winter is coming, so too are upsets. And I don't think that everyone has braced themselves. We call this on the show the Castaway Theory, by the way. We try and invoke as many metaphors that tie into the movie Castaway as possible because I think it really ties into life as a college football fan. For example, think about Tom Hanks. All he's got is Wilson to talk to for years, and he's out there on that island somewhere in the Pacific, and he starts to build that raft. Now, I remember when I watched that movie, how sturdy that raft looked. It's got the best wood on the island. I mean, it's tied together with VHS tape. What more adhesive could you possibly need? And it looks like it's ready until it goes out onto the open sea. And then you find out what the ocean does to man-made rafts. Batters it pretty thoroughly, doesn't it? That's kind of the way the season treats a lot of your expectations. Your preview magazines smell so good when you crack them open for the first time. And that roster looks so pristine. And those WWW, occasional L, more W's than L's that you drew in the blanks on those magazines, it just looks so neat and tidy. And then the season happens. You've got 22 moving pieces every play, sometimes 180 to maybe 200 of them a game if overtime is included. You've got balls that are shaped weird, that bounce all kind of different ways. You got a right guard not fully healthy you don't know about. You got a will linebacker not focused, missing his gap. And all of a sudden, results that shouldn't happen, according to what your paper says, happen. And it's going to happen this Saturday. And I'm looking across the board, and I'm trying to ask myself, as I failingly do every year, where is the upset coming? It's easy to know it's coming. Where is it going to come? That's the big question. Now, there's one game, couple of them actually, that we have broken down and are going to break down tonight. So I wanted to start with those, but then I wanted to go a little bit further off the radar. So Cincinnati at Arkansas gets more fascinating by the day. That's the game that we're going to be at Saturday. And yet I don't know a single person who has picked Cincinnati to win this game. I mean, I have not heard a single person, even in our comment section, that has picked Cincinnati and then put together a well-articulated, logic-based argument. It's easy to just say Cincinnati because you know nothing's on the line if you say it and you're wrong. But do you really believe it? Have any of you put money on Cincinnati money line? Have you seen any of the national types? Because I haven't. I haven't picked them to win. I haven't seen anyone picking them to win. And the line is under a touchdown. This thing's in Fayetteville. Do you understand what's being disseminated there from odds makers? That means that they're playing this thing in Atlanta, a field goal probably is the line on this thing, and that's with Desmond Ridder and the entire secondary gone for Cincinnati. And you've got all this returning hype and all these returning players and Kendall Browse and KJ Jefferson, year two together. Sam Pittman, what a program. Most of these things have been said by me, and the line is, what is it right now, Jesse, 6? It's under a touchdown. So, is that where the upset comes? And if it happens, how big an upset is that? I think it would be painted as a huge upset nationally, and yet your odds board right there is telling you, no, it's a mild upset. That's what it would be. Categorically, it would be a mild upset. I picked Arkansas to win. I picked Arkansas to cover, but I told you our model has, I think, Arkansas minus 7.5. So we're not that far off of what the Vegas number is. It's just going to be a really competitive game. Cincinnati's a really good team. I have told you a couple of times this week. There are players whose names you don't know on that team yet that are plenty good enough to play in any Power 5 league. It's just that because they're not a national name brand type program, you don't know them. That doesn't mean they can't play. It just means you don't know they can play. And you'll find out Saturday when you watch this game, yeah, they lost a bunch of pieces. Yeah, they got some pieces that you have not heard of yet to fill those voids. The other one that we're going to break down later tonight, in a few minutes actually, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it, is Penn State at Purdue. It's a very short line. Penn State's favored by 3.5 at most places right now. And Purdue, in many ways, stands the biggest opportunity to springboard off of a week one result because Purdue plays their toughest game in week one, at least until maybe way later in the year. And that's Penn State at home. Look at the rest of Purdue's schedule. Look at what they have down the road. They go to Wisconsin. That's not until October 22nd. That's the next time they would play a ranked opponent. We have Penn State power rated top 10. The AP doesn't have them ranked. And I'm going to talk about kind of the way we differ in just a few minutes. But do you know what kind of pressure is on the Penn State program? Talked about it many times. 2 of their first 3 games are on the road. This one, 2 weeks later at Auburn. This game, this Penn State-Purdue game, will have big-time every given Saturday tour ramifications attached to it, and I'm sure that James Franklin's feeling that pressure, by the way. And well, he should, because we showed up to the Auburn game last year, and we probably, truth be told, were the driving factor that pushed them over the top and got that win. But hey, if they lose this game, Purdue's set up beautifully in the Big Ten West, but also if Penn State loses this game, it's kind of like the raft that looks great on shore. All the rafts you've ever seen built look great on shore. You take them out into the open ocean, and the waves and the ocean and the tides do what those sorts of things do. What if Purdue just wins? What if it's 31-30 and they win, and Penn State's offensive line's not what it should be, and they didn't run the ball for more than 100 yards with any individual back there, and a lot of the same ugly trends from last year carry over to this year. I'm going to break the game down in just a second. I'm just saying, how many people are out there picking Purdue? Not a whole lot. Some, I've seen some, not a whole lot. Now, I want to go a little off the radar. I just want you to be heads up. And I'm not picking any of these. I'll tell you what our model thinks in a second. I'm not picking any of these. I just want it to be acknowledged. You shouldn't be overlooking these. Central Michigan plays Oklahoma State in week 1. That is the Jim McElwain-led Central Michigan Chippewas, or Chippewas, the further north you go. I'm from West Central Georgia. There is a hard Waz on the end of Central Michigan's mascot for us. Good pass rush, which you probably don't know about because you have a life and you don't have time to watch Central Michigan. Really good secondary, which also you probably don't know about because you have a life and don't have time to watch Central Michigan. They have an experienced quarterback. And also, there's this entire defensive coordinator situation at Oklahoma State. You know who was there, Jim Knowles. He's gone to Columbus, Ohio now. Does the country know? Jesse, I don't have a good feel for this. Colin, I don't have a good feel for this. How many people out there are aware that Derek Mason, by way of Auburn, by way of Vanderbilt before that, is now the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State? I don't know if a whole lot of you have been paying attention to that. There are some people in the coaching industry, as much as they respect Mike Gundy, that think, woo, he just lost a really integral part of that team. And here's the thing. Central Michigan can limit your possessions. Possessions will be the name of the game here. So how many of them do they get? And also, 22. Our model likes Oklahoma State. They paint Oklahoma State in the model. The model paints Oklahoma State minus 25. So our model likes Oklahoma State. I just want to put it out there. Central Michigan has some facets of that team that could make this game interesting to watch. NC State and South Carolina, I find in very similar positions going into week 1. Let me talk about NC State for a second. Here's what you probably know about them. They got Devin Leary back. They're really good defensively. They won 9 games last year, and they could win the ACC, right? All that checks out. What you probably don't know is anything about East Carolina. But see, NC State opens the road at East Carolina in just a few days. The spread is 11.5 at most places. And so I look at this one, and I wonder, how would it happen? How would the upset happen? You've also, with a bunch of these closer than they should be kind of spreads in week 1, you normally always have a veteran presence at quarterback. You normally always have a decent stable of running backs. East Carolina checks both of these boxes. NC State is probably going to move up and down the field fairly easily between the 20s. Where this could turn is if they get down the red zone and they have to settle for 3s instead of 7s. That's how East Carolina sort of lulls you into a false sense of security. You've watched that game happen a million times before, where someone's moving the ball at will. Think about Bama-Clemson 2018 title game. Bama's moving the ball up and down the field on Clemson. They cannot convert for the life of themselves when they get in the red zone, and they get blown out. And after the game, you're asking yourself, but they were moving the ball so well. How did this happen? What happened by design? There are no illusion. I guarantee you there's no illusion in the East Carolina coaching staff that, oh, we'll stone them. They're not going to stone them, but when they get down to the red zone, if you're opportunistic enough and you can harness that home energy, which, by the way, they will have. They hate NC State and Greenville with the passion of 100 white-hot suns. And if they can harness that and make it a fourth quarter game, our model thinks the number's right. So our model paints North Carolina winning the thing by about 11 or 12 points. They got it to do. You're looking at the schedule there. Charleston Southern next week, Texas Tech the week after that, UConn the week after that, and then they go to Clemson. And most of you are not even making an appointment to watch NC State until that October 1st date against Clemson. So let's keep them on our radar Saturday. And speak of the Gamecocks, whatever they're calling themselves up there these days, Georgia State comes into Columbia Saturday. I think this game's Saturday. I got to be careful here because we like South Carolina. I'm not picking an upset. Don't worry about it. But look what I am doing. You see me picking at my hand here? Got a little callus. Had a good day on incline bench, but it did contribute to the callus. And I'm picking at it because it really makes me uneasy that South Carolina has all this energy behind the program, and everyone's talking about that trip they're about to make to Arkansas in week 2. And then they got Georgia coming in there in week 3. And are they going to be 2-1? Are they going to be 1-1? Are they going to be 3-0? And no one in the world is talking about the fact that they're less than a 2-touchdown favorite at home against Georgia State in week 1. Here's what you always should think about Georgia State. You should think they're probably better than I expect because they're probably littered with former SEC guys who, for whatever reason, didn't work out where they originally committed, and so they found a home in Atlanta. That's the kind of athlete Georgia State has. Jacksonville State's the same way. Troy, in some years, is the same way. These Southern G5 level teams, you always have to be careful with them. It's kind of the feel you should have when you play a service academy, but for different reasons. You never take those teams lightly. If you're in Alabama or if you're in Georgia, if you're in these kind of areas where a lot of the fallback options for Power 5 level talent that doesn't work out is you, then occasionally you can have a really good roster. They've got one at Georgia State. They got a bunch of all Sun Belt type players on defense that are back, and we got a whole bunch of newness offensively at South Carolina. So Spencer Rattler's the new quarterback there. There's a lot of hope. There should be. There's a lot of energy behind the program. There should be. What I wonder, as I look at our model, put South Carolina at -15, is how does this play out? I'll tell you how I think it will. This is the kind of game where it's close first quarter. Georgia State may even have an early lead for all I know. Close at halftime, still competitive third quarter, and then through some chain of events, South Carolina gets themselves some margin in the fourth quarter, and you end up, if you just surf box scores at the end of the day, you see, South Carolina won. They may have even covered. Good for them. But yet, if you watch the whole game, you tell that buddy who just surfs box scores, dude, that was way closer than that final score makes it look. I'm telling you, there's some work still to be done at South Carolina, and that's okay. There's going to be work to be done for everybody. But that one I've got my eye on. Kentucky, the number 2 odds-on favorite in the SEC East preseason. They are a 16.5-point favorite at home against Miami of Ohio. And also, Mississippi State got a royal screw job at Memphis last year, so they play them in week 1. And in Starkville, the Bulldogs, who we've got power rated number 20 in the preseason, they are a 15-point favorite. Heartbreak is inevitable, and I don't really even know what you guys yourselves can do to avoid it, but I just want you to be on guard. Be excited, but be alert. That's how we should go into week 1.